Hi, welcome, beautiful, beloved souls. My name is Jem, Jem, and I'm an author and a psychic medium. Before I get into the commentary proper, a little bit of true facts. And before I get into that, I just want to let you know that I love missing 411 cases, and I admire and respect the great David Paulides. You can find David Paulides on YouTube. He is such a humble, good man. And it's because of him that I developed an interest in missing 411. Now for the facts. The facts are about 2 weeks ago, a 4-year-old in South Australia on a remote farm or ranch, whatever you'd like to call it, disappeared. According to his grandmother, who supervised him. Now, before I tell you that, let me tell you how the family structure is. There's a father, Gus's father is a musician who lives 100 kilometers away in a town called Balai or something like, I'm probably mispronouncing it, Balai, and he was nowhere on the scene on the day. And Gus's mother, she works on the farm, and I believe that Gus has a younger brother, and one of the grandmothers is a transgender woman, so once was a man, transgendered, but I don't think it was that one who was looking after Gus I don't know. One of the grandmothers is called Josie, and I think Josie was looking after Gus. So, and they were pretty close. And according to the grandmother, what happened was Gus was happily playing on a sand dune, and then at 5 p.m. she went to find him and he was gone. And there's a lot of questions because apparently she claimed she did a search for herself and the authorities weren't called for 3 hours. So they didn't arrive till after 8. And so there's a question, why did she take so long? Now, before I get into what as a psychic medium I channeled about this, in no way is this meant to hurt the family or for you to accuse anybody, because psychic abilities are not always right. The only other time I took an interest in a crime case was a young teenager went missing, and I had a lot of information. I received a channeling, a lot of information, and I was so shocked and worked up that I ended up writing all this information as an anonymous letter to the police. And when the perp got found and all the information came out, I was 100% right. And before we get into what I channeled about Gus, I want to also tell you that when the search was finally called, it was one of the biggest manhunts or searches in recent South Australian history, and that it's no longer, well, they are still searching, but it's been handed over to the Missing people section, persons section. There's no longer, the number of searches that were on there. And they did have an Aboriginal tracker, and Aboriginal trackers are one of the best people for searches in the world. And according to him, according to what I've heard, he said Gus is nowhere on this property. I would have found him. And I watched David Politis say sometimes when there's a search and rescue for people or children, they're very strict, and they're sent in certain, that they think a child will only travel X amount of distance when in fact it can travel 3 times that. Anyway, what I channeled, before I get into that, there are other psychics and people out there that are saying, it's an accident. There's an accident and Gus has died. One psychic, and I don't know this psychic, I heard this third hand yesterday, and from my source, the psychic said that Gus had taken medication and she felt it had to do something with the child. Well, we're going to get into what I channeled, but please, this is speculative. Never rely on a psychic. Don't take what I'm saying as 100% correct, because in no way do I want to cause extra harm or hurt to that family. That family deserves compassion, sympathy, empathy, love, and support. And I'm sending all those things, plus my condolences, because even the police said by now it's no longer a recovery of a child, it's a recovery of a deceased person. And you have to be very respectful. This family is grieving. They've lost a beautiful 4-year-old. Anyway, back to my channeling. I also channeled that Gus took medication. I also channeled that it had something to do, the medication, with what his grandmother who's transgendering needs, and that the timeline is wrong. Gus was actually found unresponsive in the early hours of, early that morning, not in the early hours, earlier that day in the morning. And the grandmother has taken his body and buried it and has just misdirected the investigation because out of remorse and guilt, because she was supposed to supervise. But it came through my channeling that nobody is to blame. This Gus was a toddler, and toddlers are curious. And I'll just share a similar story. My youngest son was awake early, and we were living or just staying the night at a friend's place. And in another room, there was a girl who lived there, and she was had a mental illness, and she had a lot of medications. And I was still sleeping, so I let my toddler son wander, and he wandered into the room, and he found her tablets and he took them. And I don't know how many he took. I just found him with like blue, like saliva, and I rushed him to the hospital. Fortunately, he was fine. He mustn't have taken that many. It must have tasted yucky. But some medication don't taste yucky. And I feel I'm going to support that psychic who said it had something to do with medication. My channeling revealed that as well, but I differed to her. She felt that the medication, it had to do with Gus's medication, but I didn't get that. I got it had to do with the grandmother's medication. Now, I don't want you to go away from this and accuse anybody of anything, because the truth might be the truth, that this little boy has wandered off and unfortunately has passed away. The truth is that whatever happened, he has passed. He's in spirit now, and my channeling also revealed, like mine's corroborating this other psychic. She's quite famous. I don't know her. As I said, I know nothing about her. I'm just corroborating. She said that there's a detective onto it. My channeling said the same thing and said that the story will come out because the family do know now what had happened, and they're being so stoic to protect the grandmother. Because can you imagine, you have a child that you're supervising and you just turn your back for a minute? Children can get into all sorts of things. So whether it is true that there's an accidental death here or that he wandered off, the truth is that she had turned her back for a minute. And I just want to end this sharing another story that in the 1980s, I lived in Townsville and I was married to a doctor, and we were driving down this road and there were no houses on either side of the road. This was being developed. The nearest houses were 2 roads over. Anyway, we saw cars in front of us going around an object as if they were trying to avoid hitting an animal. And to our shock, horror, dismay, it was a baby, toddler, a baby crawling in its nappy. We picked up the baby and took it to the police station, and we found out what had happened is that the mother had put the baby down in the cot, gone for a rest herself, and in that 20 minutes that she had gone to sleep, the baby had crawled up and crawled that distance. So children can travel quite a distance. But unfortunately, I do feel this was an accident. Nobody's to blame. Please do not accuse or blame anyone, even if the true story is that he wandered. I don't feel that. I'm supporting and corroborating another psychic that this was, for want of a better word, a poisoning. He took medication. I think the other psychic said that the grandmother gave the medication, but no. He was a curious toddler. They all get into mischief, and this is just a very tragic situation. And I do want to send my condolences and love to the family, and I'm sorry if I've missed the mark, because no way do I want to put things over people if they're not true. But I had to share with you what I think has happened, and that I'm not the only psychic that said this, that I've just revealed more information. Anyway, back to me. I will be away. I'm going to spend quality time in Brisbane with my youngest son, and therefore I will not be uploading any videos for a week. You're lucky people, you don't get to see me for a week. Some of you might be saying, good. No. All right, that was just a little joke. Take care of yourselves and each other. And, you know, this grandmother who supervised little Gus, we can't be angry with her, whatever happened. Children get up to mischief, whatever type of mischief that may be. And I am sorry. I am so sorry. All right, take care of each other and yourselves. Love, light, and blessings. My name is Gem, as I said, psychic medium and an author. Gemstone. Bye.